welcome to another video. So today we are going to be checking out a BloodCraft deck. This BloodCraft deck, mostly self-damage honestly, but it's not perfectly ran. There's definitely easy improvements that I would make. I would include the amulet that does some damage first. I completely blanked over that card when I was thinking about this deck, and I'd already done some games for this one, so I thought, well, we'll put this one out and then we might do some improvements and make this deck a lot better in the future. I've also only got one Berserker, as I don't have any others. I'm currently out of resources to get any more, so one Berserker for the moment. And I've got two Queen of the Night, even though I probably could run three. Otherwise, I would up those to 3 and mess with some other numbers to bring them in. Otherwise, quite a decent standard style deck. Has some really nice synergy with Boar Pellet Warrior here and Bear Pellet Warrior. Both work really well with different cards. So Bear Pellet works nice with Unleashed Nightmare and Blood Pact, whereas Boar Pellet works really nicely with things like Destructive Succubus, and of course really early with Urias to deal some really crazy damage and plays if you can pull them off. I mean, you can get the Vengeance off, which is awesome, so very easy there. I also want to see what I can mess around with in the future with this deck, as right now its main win con is Zeus as its big hitter. That's definitely the one you're focusing on. Otherwise, you're really just dealing with board, dealing damage to yourself, and doing that style of play. And I think if I built an unlimited version of this deck, it could be really interesting. Some of these cards that are like, if you've dealt at least 7 damage this match, summon such and such, are really cool. So you can actually do some really interesting things with self-damage with these new cards, and that should be a lot of fun. So definitely keep an eye out for an unlimited variation of this deck, as I feel like they could be really potent. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. Now, both games I've got for this video are going to be against Forest, mostly because I was still getting used to the deck, and Forest is a pretty easy matchup at the moment with most decks, as I don't tend to find anything too crazy about it. Forest does have some really cool cards, but it definitely lacks in some areas that other decks don't, like Shikigami is really difficult to deal with this kind of deck, but other than that, it's fun, it does the job. So turn 2, really cool, we can go for the rookie. I did end up going for the Boar Pellet Warrior. This is just showing that I was really lacking in experience with this deck, and actually at this time didn't realize the Urias and Boar Pellet combo was actually a cool thing. Didn't really realize that until later on in the game, so try and forgive me for that kind of misplay. Otherwise, I definitely should have went for a rookie Succubus, as it would have had the better board pressure, and it just would have been an overall better play. But for this, at least, we're not doing so bad. We're holding back the early game board. We're able to get the rookie Succubus out now, which is our second ping to us, so that's always good. I also went for the early Spawn of Exile, so I could get at least the 1-2 there, that obviously does strike and boosts its attack up, so has some more value. As I wasn't really sure what Forest was going to do for this early game. I'm kind of glad I did go for that, because it turns out they're going to wipe our board anyway. So now I need a really good way to deal with this. Urias is a good one, because it does heal itself up, so we can at least take this board back to our side and force them into a position where they're dealing with a 5-5 that they play followers against, take damage, and heal us. So overall, leaving us in a pretty decent board state right this second. It is interesting to see Forest decks move away from Roach though, so I'm actually kind of a fan of that. I actually might have to look at giving Forest another good go. That was a pretty decent way of getting rid of my Urias there too. So now we get a chance to go for the Bear Pellet Warrior play, which is really cool, so we get the double ping off. It's actually a really good way to boost up your damage. Of course, Latika. Pretty standard line of play from a Forestcraft deck in these situations. Latika's a pretty decent card overall, so not a huge surprise. Urias is our draw. Not really enough to deal with anything, but at least we can take this board back with the Vampire Slayer, which is another really cool and interesting card in my opinion. Taking advantage of your low health totals, or even medium health totals, to take out followers, while also having a really cool enhance for the 5-5 and the Bane, which is really good. So that should work quite well. The Maze, not really a problem. So we do have to worry about, of course, their board, because this current board is going to be a pain to get over. If we can at least survive to the point where Zeus becomes viable, you end up with a decent chance of winning the game. And we should at least the 2 Evo, so we only needed 1 good chance here. Although this definitely makes it that we need to push it now, so depending on our next draw is really going to depend on what we can actually do. Although, to me, we're definitely looking at a Zeus play. Or not. Bear Pellet. Dealing damage, gets us into Vengeance. Urias actually becomes a pretty decent play. And we've still got Malice the Deflector. So actually, no, that does work pretty well. We can use the Malice Deflector to, of course, take one of these wolves out. Leaving just the 4/4 on board isn't actually too bad, especially since we can go Spawn of Exile as well. Send them packing, it's a little frustrating, but not the end of the world. Another Harvest Defender. That's more of the frustrating card, because we can't really beat over that without just straight up playing Zeus anyway, so looks like that's our only option. Zeus next turn, and hope we can win off it. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. That's all we need. Good way to get it clear. Zeus definitely a biggest win condition for this deck. Now going into game 2 here. Again against Forest, as I mentioned at the beginning. It was a pretty common and decent matchup to showcase this deck off in the end, as it gave us the chance to learn the deck as I was making this video, which is great. So I decided to keep 1 Urias, mainly looking for that early combo. We do get Rookie Succubus and Destructive Succubus, which are both okay cards for this early stage. And we get the extra draw from Unleashed Nightmare, so our hand is actually not looking that bad. They did get an early Forest Champion play there, which is interesting. I haven't really looked into what Forest Champion does, but anything that excels turn 1 and puts it back into the deck can't be bad. So we got Bear Pellet Warrior again, which is great, so we can actually use that combination this time without screwing it up, while we adapt to dealing more damage and widening our board. Synchronized Slash and Dawning Splendor, okay. Nothing of problem yet. We're 1 turn off being able to use Boar Pellet to our advantage, so Cougar Pellet Wolf it is. These Pellet Wolf cards are really good. They definitely helped improve BloodCraft at the moment. Nature's Guidance for the return, and another Synchronized Slash. Not really a problem. So now we get the Urias Boar Pellet play on an empty board. Not as good. I would have preferred if I could have cleared something with Urias, but I'm also not missing a chance to play Urias against Forest in the early game, where they're basically forced to use followers to deal with this now, since they have, of course, wasted quite a few removal cards on my early game. So that was a good start. Unfortunately, the Evo of the Wildwood is really good. I didn't expect it to be a 5/6, so that definitely made things a little trickier for us here, but not exactly unbearable. An Unleashed Nightmare, a Rookie Succubus, a pretty easy Evo, and we can actually wipe this all out, which is great. While also decreasing the cost of our Destructive Succubuses, which is amazing, since anytime we can decrease their cost is good. Plus we're already 2 counters in on Zeus, so that's going to be a huge edge in the late game. Dawn Splendor again, probably taking out the 3/1, or not even taking out 3/1 since it decreases its attack power. The only real problem now would actually be dealing with this board. If I thought about it a little more, I should have just evolved a bat and then went with the Destructive Succubus play and wiped out the entire board anyway. Not to say that this didn't work just fine, as it did. It just meant expending more resources than necessary while also holding on to more Destructive Succubus, which against Forest, I guess, isn't the worst thing that could have happened. Forest is pretty easy at regenerating wide small boards, so Destructive Succubus is quite a valuable card for dealing with that sort of play. Not really worried. Beautiful card, but not really worried. This time, I go for the Succubus play, wiping them out, getting the damage in, setting up another 7 damage on board, forcing them to have to deal with this, which honestly they do a pretty decent job of. while still holding on to their Evo. Basically setting up for another Succubus play, since I don't really have that much else. And we did end up with the Zeus though, and we can go for the Pellet Wolf's plays here, which once we include Cougar Pellet Wolf, we can actually go for a double hit. We just needed to deal enough damage to get us into that 7 bracket. And now some of our other cards will actually get a lot more value if we draw them. But by that point, hopefully Zeus will be our win. So this game you're going to see, I do take a bit more of a safer route. I could have easily went for the Zeus play right here and tried to end the game off this single Zeus. I decided to go for the Succubus and the Boar Pellet Wolf play set up here instead, since it does give us a Vengeance activation and board spread. Mainly because I didn't want the Zeus to trigger and not have enough to win us the game. I didn't feel like I was in a pressure enough situation yet to really need it. Although looking at this board, it was definitely a risk. And I do a similar thing here. I actually go for the Urias, which isn't the worst thing in the world, since we can take out both these followers fairly easily without spending too much value. But it was definitely risky. If I had just went for the Zeus, the chance of me winning probably could have been okay. But I definitely increased that chance by making the Urias play, giving us that extra Evo. So it's just a matter of how good is this next turn going to be for us. So Guardian is a little bit of a problem because now we are required to hit Ward. So Ward it is. I end up getting the Night Queen. Can't really pass those up. Queen of Night. 3 damage, 3 heal. We can go for the strike play. It was just too good. I couldn't resist. And we get the 6-7 alongside it. So at this point in the game, it's just a matter of what can they draw that would actually be a threat. Primal Giant was definitely one of them, and a worry. Fortunately for us, they only managed to do 10 total with their damage on board. So we actually weren't in lethal range yet. And all we need Zeus to gain, basically, is Storm and 1 increase, which if they gain Storm, they get an increase anyway, so going to need to win this game. Unfortunately, we end up being well and truly above that, but you never know. That's why I played most of this game reasonably safe. So this is definitely a deck that could do with some improvement. It's definitely got room to grow, and definitely something I'd like to improve on, as it's not necessarily a bad deck. It hasn't been super easy for me to adjust to and win with, but I feel like the more I get used to these Pellet Warrior cards, the more I can see different options and plays, along with, of course, increasing the speed that they can come out would also be good. So if I can build this deck up, we'll definitely do another video on it. Otherwise, look out for an unlimited video, as I think that could be really good for this deck too. So if you did enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe, find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys.